Well, thank you guys for coming out and thanks for having me. This is our first presentation of the fall here. So we're just getting into our presentation season. We've had a long and arduous summer. So we are Grow Local, which is a small startup company that just started in Neenah, Wisconsin about 2 years ago. What we are is we're a sustainable farm, small scale organic agriculture. We utilize permaculture design and aquaponics, among other things, to create a sustainable system.
I'm Calvin Anderson. I'm also one of the co-founders. Our other partner is Steve Catlin. I have a Bachelor of Science in Biological Systems Engineering from UW-Madison. And I primarily focus on the design and implementation of the technologies that we use.
So we'll just start with a quick overview of what our farm is and what we're trying to do, and then we'll kind of go into how we, basically how we got the idea and how we got to the point where we are today. Basically 4 or 5 years ago, we were at UW-Madison and just hanging out, trying to figure out what we want to do with the next stage of our lives. And we really wanted to do something that was meaningful to the community and basically also where we didn't have to get a job because we didn't really want to. I had worked for a couple of companies in corporate structures and didn't really enjoy myself and couldn't see myself doing that for the rest of my life. So Calvin and I were looking at different ideas, and we knew we wanted to do something that was in the sustainability field because it's definitely a burgeoning part of the economy. And it's going to be something that's going to be there for a long time. So figured that would be a good place to get our hands in. And so we first looked at, could we build really sustainable housing? Could we build different things like that? And basically we came to food because it's basically has the greatest amount of leverage. It's got low overhead to start generally. For small-scale agriculture, and basically everybody uses it. So if you really want to affect people in a positive way, then food is a good way to go about it.
Not only that, obviously population is growing, so the demand for food will always be growing. Arable farmland is decreasing everywhere, and it's the worst-case scenario, we have food shortages, and the best-case scenario, prices of food go up. So it's when I said it. It's a strong position for farmers.
The type of agriculture that we're involved in is basically taking a small amount of space and growing as much food as possible in this space. So aquaponics is the use of aquaculture, which is raising fish, and then hydroponics, which is growing produce without soil. So what we do is we take the fish waste and we pump it through our filters, which breaks down the ammonia, turns it into nitrites, and then into nitrates, which then the plants take up as nitrogen, and then basically cleans the water, and then that water recirculates back to the fish. So in this way we can recirculate water, so we use less water. We don't use any chemicals.
So here you can see this is lettuce growing in what's called raft style in deep water culture. The roots grow down into the water, which is basically filled with the nutrient solution, which is the broken down fish waste. So we use bluegill, which is a native species. We wanted to stick with something that people around here would have a hard time getting farmed fish otherwise. Bluegill's not really farmed very heavily. We'd like to do perch in the future, which is another native popular fish.
If I may go back for a second. So when we were still in school, we decided that we wanted to do something in the agricultural field. So what we did is we just started writing a business plan, which I had a little bit of experience doing. I took a lot of business classes at UW, and I actually ran a small painting franchise for College Pro Painters for a few years. So I wrote a business plan, and then we entered into a couple of competitions at the business school. Get a lot of great feedback on how to tweak the business plan. Then we picked up our third partner, Steve, who had a bunch of resources up here in the Fox Valley. and continued to tweak the business plan a little bit. And then it came time, once we graduated, to start fundraising. So we looked to family and friends and raised the necessary capital to start the business. And then we got our hands dirty and broke ground in September of 2011.
So yeah, as Alex was explaining, these are the filters that we pump our fish waste through. Aquaponics is just one example of polyculture, which is a facet of permaculture, permaculture being permanent agriculture. We design systems so that they're more in line with how plants and animals grow in nature. So we try to mimic their environments more closely than conventional systems. So polyculture is taking multiple organisms and putting them in the same system. This is where the bacteria in our system live.
So we align ourselves with other businesses in the community to take their waste streams to create a more sustainable community. So we go to all the restaurants that we sell in Neenah and Appleton, and we take all of their food waste and we compost it with our neighbors and our own horse manure and coffee grounds from all the local coffee shops. So basically we're just taking a waste stream that would otherwise go to the landfill and turning it into something that's really useful for us.
This is another section of permaculture, is mimicking how nature breaks things down, because in nature there is no waste. Everything is broken down and turned back into something that will be taken up by other organisms. So food waste is broken down by worms and bacteria and fungus. And turned back into nutrient-rich soil in almost the exact same process that we do in the aquaponic system. So this is just another parallel that we use in our business. This is us picking through ice chunks of compost in the middle of winter last year.
So in addition to, what we have is a quarter of an acre that we grow on right now, which is really, really small compared to most other farms. But we're able to utilize our space more effectively than large farms do. So we're able to turn over our crops and use that space more effectively. So we have about a 3,000 square foot garden right now. And we utilize polyculture all throughout the garden and permaculture design. So you see here, this is basically a pseudo lasagna style gardening. So what we've done here is we lay cardboard over the entire area, which cardboard helps block weeds. Worms use it as bedding. And then we've laid straw over the top of that, inoculated with mushroom spawn. And then we put our compost right over the top of that, and then sow our seeds directly into the compost. And all throughout summer, there's mushrooms coming up throughout the garden because of the conditions that we've created. So instead of spraying pesticides and herbicides to get rid of weeds, we're just utilizing things that would naturally occur.
Yeah, so another piece of permaculture is called companion planting. And this is where you choose groups of plants that work really well together. And in this way we can avoid using pesticides and herbicides, because these plants are growing in a way that's inherently healthier, and therefore they can utilize their own defense mechanisms against those pests. Here you can see tomatoes, peppers, basil, leeks. Maybe you can't distinguish them, but they're there. And we grow them in an arrangement that allows for maximum light penetration and airflow, which also increases their health.
So, as an example, the tomatoes grow tall and they have so much foliage that they help create a humid climate, which the peppers need to grow in. And then the basil it's really aromatic. It has a nice scent to it, but it detracts pests from attacking your tomatoes and your peppers. And then the alliums are also a similar thing, which the alliums are onions, leeks. They also do a similar thing to detract or to take away pests.
And the mushrooms in this scenario, they break down nutrients in the soil that would otherwise be locked up. And some mushrooms can actually release certain chemicals, not chemicals, but well, I guess they are, into the soil, which act as certain pesticides. So they'll repel certain pests as well.
If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask too.
So do you do the mushrooms and then the tomato leek thing? Like,
Yeah,
is
the
that
mushrooms
a
go
crop
down.
rotation or just one area?
It's all in the same area.
Yeah, it's all layered. So in this picture, you can see this is mushrooms that are underneath tomato plants. So we just lay them down first because otherwise it'd be impossible to get them in the ground. So.
And the reason that the reason that we do this is because this is a extremely burgeoning area of the food market. People are more and more interested in knowing where their food's coming from. So we're located right in Neenah. So it's not like you have to drive 30 miles to see where your food's coming from. We're right in the community. Additionally, people are more interested in having chemical-free produce. So it makes a lot of sense, and we're seeing more and more people becoming interested in this type of growing. So.
And the products are worth more because in the case of food, the sooner you get the food from the ground to the table, the more nutrients it has, the less time it has the nutrients have to break down, the more flavor it will have, which chefs are very aware of that. So they're willing to pay the highest prices for food that comes from their backyard. One of our main customers is like 200 yards from our farm, and they're willing to pay top dollar for produce that they know is going to have the most nutrients, the most flavor, and people can literally see our farm from their patio. So
That's Zupa's in Neenah, if you've ever been up to Neenah. It's a really great little sandwich and soup shop. So in the greenhouse, obviously with organic growing, you'll have pests. So on the left here, those are aphids. And instead of spraying pesticides, we utilize integrated pest management. So we buy ladybugs or attract them, and then the ladybugs predate the aphids. So they do a really, really great job, actually. So
there are many types of beneficial bugs that you can use to attack any pest that you have.
Do you have a problem with the Chinese beetles then?
Japanese beetles?
The Japanese beetles?
not really.
No, they're really not that terrible in this area.
And in fact, this year we haven't had, this summer we have not had like any pest problems whatsoever. And I attribute that to the way that we're growing. But it could just be a climate thing. It could just be a lucky year for that. So
Really, you have to be growing for like 4 or 5 years before you really can tell how effective your methods are. So it could just be that we're lucking out, but I think that just because we have such a biodiverse area that we have a little microclimate that is just like a little pocket of balance on our farm. So this is us using compost to seed the plugs that are going to be going into the aquaponic system. This compost is a product that we actually purchase just because it's a really uniform and really top-notch product that's produced in Appleton. It's PD's worm castings that we use.
it's actually a really cool place. It's just like a warehouse, and you walk in and there's just piles of soil everywhere. And you dig your hand into the soil and there's just worms everywhere. It's an incredible place. If you're into that kind of thing.
And we use worm castings because they have certain micronutrients that are lacking in aquaponics. It takes a really long time for aquaponics to become mature enough to have the right microbes built up to allow plants to take up all the necessary nutrients to grow. So we are supplementing that by using worm castings. In this picture, you can see we have an iron supplement, which is anything that we use is organic if we have to purchase it, but we try not to purchase anything that is anything that looks artificial. I mean, you can tell like the difference between an iron supplement and worm castings, but we've kind of strayed away from the iron supplements and we're trying to use more natural products.
And we do this because the customers are demanding it too, so it's not like it's not like something that we have a personal, well, I mean, we do have a personal mission, but at the same time, customers are demanding it, so.
It would be very easy to buy chemical fertilizer and just dump it in the system, and that would solve all of our problems. But sometimes you have to do it the hard way to get the highest price.
Mm-hmm.
These are cucumbers. They're growing in our system. They They really like aquaponics. This is to show you how we can use vertical growth to gain more productivity per square foot. We did find a difficulty with cucumbers is they require pollination and pollinators, and it's very difficult to get a ton of pollinators in a greenhouse that's enclosed. We were going for biosecurity, trying to block out all pests and control our environment, but also blocks out pollinators. And so we were in there with Q-tips pollinating each flower to get cucumbers. I don't know that we'll try that again.
So this was in January of last year. This is our lettuce crop here, and this was actually one of our best harvests last year. It was in the middle of January, which was one of the coldest weeks of the year last year. So we grow several different types of lettuce, and then cut them up and sell them to local restaurants.
Yeah, season extension is another tenet that we use. By using greenhouses and covering our crops outside, we're able to get harvests later into the season and earlier, and that makes our business more sustainable and more competitive, because other farmers just don't necessarily use those tactics.
Yeah, in fact, I think we're the only farm in the Fox Valley right now that's able to grow all year round. So it's a pretty cool thing.
This is a picture of radicchio. It's just that's a lettuce variety that we sell.
So right now we're at the point where the three of us are pretty close to being maxed out on what we can do with our 1/4 of an acre. And it is in our business plan to expand to a larger facility. We're having record weeks every week. As far as sales are concerned, we're selling to some of the best restaurants in town, and we have more support from the community than we've ever had. And so we're in the process of writing a business plan for expansion. And so hopefully within the next year or two, we'll be looking at putting up about a 10,000 square foot greenhouse on a 2-acre site in the city of Neenah or in one of the surrounding communities. And basically having a farm incubator or a university type thing where people who are interested in doing these kind of things, designing permaculture systems, having community outreach, can come to us, learn how to do these techniques, and then bring it back to their own community. So
just across last October. So this is basically the stage we're at this year. We're starting to plant fall crops. This is some death.
this was in the middle of January too, outside. So we're able to grow crops outside, actually in the dead of winter too. So.
We heat our greenhouse with a wood-fired furnace. This is just another example of permaculture using energy sources that are located locally. We get all of our wood from dead trees that are down. I would say 90% of the trees that we get are within 200 to 300 yards from where we grow. So. It's a 65-year-old tree that we knocked down. This is just more pictures of our system here. But to expand on what Alex was saying about our expansion plan, our business this is a pilot project of what we're doing here, and it's just to prove our model that growing on a very small scale is possible, and you can make money doing it. And using the lessons that we learn, we plan to have models that people that are basically be able to be purchased as franchises, and so people would be working under our business and growing in these methods with slight adjustments for their community, whether that be crop types or growing methods. We think that by having many small, agile micro farms, that it will be a stronger, more secure food network, and we think it's just a more sustainable business model than large-scale eggs.
I think that's all we have for you. Does anybody have any questions?
What are some local restaurants that you could?
Well, we sell the Zupas in Neenah, Fresh in Neenah, which is a brand new restaurant that is actually really, really good. And then we sell to Carmela's up in Appleton, which is one of the best restaurants in the Fox Valley. And Sana, which is right on College Ave. We also started selling to a few restaurants in Oshkosh, but with less success. Any others?
Village Hearthstone in Hilbert, Kangaroost in Kaukauna.
So do you guys find it difficult to kind of get your foot in the door and get the leads for these restaurants?
It's
To
not
some degree, but also at the same time, this is actually a really high quality product that we're putting out, so people are almost busting down our door sometimes. Like an example is the fish. We don't have a lot of fish. We have about 2,500 bluegill. We had our first harvest on Good Friday of this year, which was specifically timed out so we could get the highest price on our fillets. But we sold them all in just one blink of an eye for $20 a pound, which you don't really see for any fillets ever. But it's sustainably raised, extremely healthy fish, locally raised.
The chefs we were talking to said it was the best tasting fish they've ever had. So, yeah, we have a list like 5 or 6 restaurants long, a waiting list for the fish. So, it's right now it's the only. It's not a problem of getting more customers. It's a problem of getting enough product to all of our customers that we already have.
Yep.
And we can't really just grow more lettuce for those particular customers. We have to diversify our products because that's just in like the central tenets of our business is to have many different types of income streams. So if we can supply more different products to the customers that we already have, we think that will ultimately be a better model than just trying to scale up our, for example, lettuce production.
You explained how the fish waste feeds the plants. How do you feed the fish?
It's a good question. Currently we're using pelletized commercial feed, which is made by Purina Mills, which is the industry standard. We're not very happy about it because it's made of other ground up fish and basically what fish food is. It's specifically engineered to grow fish big. So it's really good at that. But we don't really know, the jury's still out whether or not that's sustainable, and it probably isn't. So we're working on finding other ways to supplement our fish diet. So.
Yeah, that fish comes from generally the ocean, and it's usually like waste products, which is sustainable. But we would like to grow our own fish food, but it's very difficult to get a perfectly balanced diet from just growing bugs. We would right now we would try to grow redworms and black soldier flies to feed our fish, but that wouldn't give them the vegetative matter that they need. They can't get all the nutrients from just like a 90% protein source.
But this is such a up and coming industry, aquaponics, that there are companies out there right now that are trying to develop these more sustainable feeds.
And there is organic fish feed out there. It's just very difficult to find and get that product. And when you have an agriculture industry like we do in Wisconsin, it's just so easy to go down to Greenville Co-op and pick up a 50-pound bag of commercial feed. So,
but that is one of the last things in our system that we're working on, kind of internalizing into our own organization. For very much about vertical integration. So.
how long your produce can be stored and still remain fresh?
Fresher than the stuff in the grocery stores for sure. So I mean, we pick it morning of, get it out to the restaurants that day. Same thing when we go to the farmers market, all of our stuff is picked that day. So, you know, depends on what it is. You know, a slightly underripe tomato can last a week and a half. Some of our lettuce, if it's bagged up properly, can last a week and a half. So.
But generally, we try to just sell restaurants enough for them to last a week so that we can get them on like weekly schedules, just to have a more predictable schedule.
It's better for us to have a fresh product out there because it makes the customers happier, makes the chefs happier. And then it just reflects more positively on us.
Yep. Because after just a couple days of sitting on the shelf, the nutrients go down by an exponential rate.
So you mentioned that you have a lot of people knocking on your door to come get your product. Do you go and sell at farmers markets typically for publicity, or do you actually bring your extra?
That's a great question. Yeah, ideally, I mean, we would, if we could, we would sell it all to restaurants. So sometimes we do just end up taking the extra stuff. So you're absolutely right that a lot of the times we just go to the farmers markets for publicity and talk to the community because it's less predictable. You know, you don't want to pick 100 pounds of tomatoes, take them to the farmer's market, and then suddenly you're left with 95 pounds of tomatoes, and you don't know what to do with them. So yeah, we use the farmer's market more as a tool to reach out to the community, which is just as fine, and we don't have a problem recouping our cost in that manner.
Yeah, but that's not to say that the farmer's market isn't profitable. We make back what we spend on the farmer's market every week, so it's
So.
How many hours a week would you say like you put into this business?
Not enough.
We could definitely do more. I would say that we're all about full time, basically.
So 35 to 40 hours a week.
But the system is designed for 1 or 2 people to basically be able to work full time. It's just that the system isn't perfected, so the more hours we can spend tweaking it and building new infrastructure, the better it's going to be, and the more valuable our business will be.
And additionally, we're doing other things too. We're marketing the business. We're out there trying to find new customers. So we're doing all those kinds of things too.
So when you expand into your new 2 acres, are you going to hire more employees, do you think, or should you be able to?
Yeah, we'll definitely have to hire a few people, and we're looking to, give or take, we're hoping 5 or fewer probably, but we definitely. Okay, so there's basically 2 schools of thought in urban agriculture. One is really intensive, lots of labor, and that's generally used by nonprofits because they can utilize free labor.
Which is the growing power method.
Yeah, and then there's the other side, which is high automation and spend more money up front in order to reduce labor costs in the long term. And that's kind of the school of thought we're in. So ideally, we'd have as few employees as possible.
Yeah, because I mean, there are some people out there that are trying to use this as like a job creator. And an example of that is Sweetwater, Milwaukee, which was one of the first movers in the aquaponics industry. And they got a $500,000 loan from the city of Milwaukee if they created 45 jobs within 5 years. And they averaged 2.6 jobs over those 5 years. So now the city took over their business and is selling off everything that they had. So it's not a jobs creator. But Growing Power, which is kind of where we got the idea actually, which is run by Will Allen, and they're in the inner city of Milwaukee on a 2-acre farm. It's like the most inspirational thing that it's unbelievable what he's been able to do on 2 acres, and he feeds I don't know what he says, 10,000 people every year, something like that.
400 tons.
And so he's been doing it for 20 years, and he employs hundreds of people all throughout the city, just creating community gardens and things like that. So.
I'm not familiar with Will Allen. I saw him on a documentary called Fresh.
Yep.
And I agreed it was inspirational. Do you know what he does? Does he use just general commercial feed for his fish, or?
I know I think they have commercial feed. I know that they were at some point, but they do supplement with black soldier flies and red wigglers.
Yeah, they have you know, the thing about permaculture is it takes many years to build up your system. So they have so many folds in their system, it's unbelievable. I mean, we've only been at it for 2 years. You know, we don't have fruit trees, we don't have nuts, we don't have berries. We don't have vermicomposting yet. So
I mean, he gets the Will Allen internship is it's like you work 60 hours a week and you're basically turning compost and like lifting heavy things all day and like for like 12 hours a day. So that's like the Will Allen method is just like, you know, will yourself to be like the most productive person on the planet. And they have like hundreds and hundreds of tons of compost that they do, and so they have the capacity to produce like that much food for their like fish if they wanted to.
Yeah, but he's definitely changing lives for the better in that community. So.
What variety of plants do you grow?
Well, in the aquaponics system, in the winter we do a variety of lettuces. There's Optima, Radicchio, Romaine, Endive. We try, just a lot of different lettuce. And in the summer, outdoors we grow just a whole variety of things: eggplants, tomatillos, tomatoes, peppers, a whole bunch of different types of peppers. Basil, dill, parsley, cilantro, beans, spinach, kale, chard, potatoes.
What we learned within the last 2 years is it's really important for us to find niche products. So we've been growing almost all heirloom products, which are just basically seeds that have existed for hundreds and hundreds of years. So like a farmer with 100 acres of corn is using a hybridized corn seed, which generally can't reproduce itself. It's a sterile seed, so it's not going to. You can't harvest the seed and then plant it next year. So there's a whole debate behind genetically modified organisms, which we won't get into because we're kind of neutral on it. You know, it's great technology and all, but it certainly does strip the soil of some things. So, but heirloom varieties are generally considered to be more sustainable because they've existed for 200 years and you can replant the seed. They're not sterile. So we focus on those kinds of things. So we grew like 5 different types of heirloom tomatoes this year, and we grew heirloom eggplants and so those kinds of things.
And we'll be looking at like what sold the best, what made the most money per square foot, and so there will be sort of a change every year based on what the market wants. It's not just but there are things that we will grow that don't make a lot of money just because that they fit into our system really well. Like for example, carrots. Like carrots you don't make any money off of carrots, especially on a small scale system. But because they grow really well with tomatoes and they help tomatoes grow, we'll grow it just to have the biodiversity. Similarly, we'll dedicate space to growing all sorts of flowers that are essentially useless from a sales standpoint, but they attract pollinators and repel certain pests, and also they can fix. There's different flowers do different things, but the point is you can't sell them, but we will dedicate space to them because they help our system.
So when you guys were getting started, what was your biggest issue that you had to overcome? Did you guys just open business and people were knocking down your door? What was
the biggest hurdle was construction. We built this all by ourselves. So it's a 20 by 96 greenhouse. It's 2,000 square feet. We brought in 110 tons of gravel. We shoveled it all by hand. It's amazing that no one's really injured themselves. We've all thrown our backs like several times, but it's back-breaking labor. So to me, that's the most difficult thing.
Putting in plumbing and electrical conduit. I would say definitely the lack of experience in really all aspects of the setup, like physical aspects, definitely construction and like planning, like crop planning. So really just like those things that require experience that you can't really get without just doing it. But now that we've done it for a year and a half, it's just becoming easier, and you can see where you made mistakes.
The business planning part of it and the positioning of our business was not the difficult part, probably because we have been thinking about this for so long, and we have a pretty good idea of what customers are looking for, and because we ourselves, we consider ourselves customers, so it's not a difficult market to see. I feel like it's I don't know. That wasn't the hard part though.
So like, where do you see your business growing? Like, when you talk in terms of customers, do you want to kind of stay in the restaurants, or do you want to go to like grocery stores and stuff?
I mean, all of them. Ideally, we would have enough product to fill all demand, and I think that's just the biggest hurdle that's going to be in the future is being able to grow enough to meet all the demand, which is a good problem to have. But yeah.
In our business plan, it says we want to try and maintain a 50-50 balance between retail customers and businesses. Because when you're selling to individual customers, you get that one-on-one interaction, and then they tell all of their friends about that. Whereas direct to restaurant sales, they're more reliable. I don't know. I guess they're just more reliable. But and I mean, if they're going to cook a nice meal with your food, it makes it look way better.
And they're early adopters, so I mean,
exactly.
They understand the value of your product the most because they're the ones who work with your product the most. So being able to work with people who are the most excited about your product initially is definitely of value.
And in our next facility, we want to put in a retail space. So
when you were first starting and building your customer base for like marketing and stuff, did you guys go and knock on people's doors and say this is what we have, or did it just kind of happen? Did it come to you?
I think that we might be a special case where we found a wealth of excitement from the very beginning. We had several articles published in the first year without.
We hadn't done anything.
We hadn't even broke ground. We did not have a product. We had not made a single sale, and we had 3 articles put out. So that, and I wouldn't expect that ever in the future. But and from there, I guess our marketing strategy is largely like a viral one. We utilize social media and just word of mouth type marketing. But no, we never have knocked down the doors.
We do. We will occasionally cold call restaurants and say, hey, we've heard you guys we heard you guys do great work. Are you interested in some really, really good produce? And most of the time they'll be open to the idea. So.
What did you do for startup money?
We just went to friends and family. So we raised $35,000 and built the whole farm. And so now we've used all that money, and now we're paying off all of our debt with the money we're making now. So.
Yeah, and basically, the short-term plan is to recapitalize in the spring or sometime next year. And we haven't set a firm number on that, but it could be anywhere from $100,000 to $1 million. It could be anything. It's really just a matter of
what the community is willing to put forth,
and what opportunities present themselves.
So you guys had said that you were one of the few farms that was growing in the winter. I guess the question is, how warm did you keep it, and how much work are you going through, and why are other farms not doing
this?
We went through a lot of wood last year to answer that question.
Probably 10 to 15 cords of wood, which is a lot of wood. It's cord is 2,000 pounds. So, so 20,000 pounds.
But we kept the greenhouse between 60 and 70 degrees, the water that is. And that's, when it got down to 5 below, you know, we'd be out there stoking the fire in the middle of the night and the water would still be 65 degrees, which is pretty impressive actually.
The only time the water temperature really dipped was when we had like sub-zero nights outside. And you know, you only get a handful of those, and so we would even cover the crops inside. But we shoot for the winter, we still, you know, because we are affected by the outside environment, we're not 100% enclosed. We choose crops that are frost tolerant, and lettuce is not just frost tolerant, it actually becomes better when it gets down to freezing temperatures, because the carbohydrates in there turn, you know, into sugars, basically to act as an antifreeze. Yeah, lettuce becomes better.
This year we're going to be better prepared because we're going to be utilizing some of Will Allen's techniques. We're going to be burning all of our active compost up on the north side of the greenhouse. So compost can stay anywhere between 100 and 150 degrees. So that's going to really help our energy usage.
Yeah.
So.
Not just from the heating, but the insulation as well.
And it'll actually be a positive feedback loop because the heat of the greenhouse during the day will help keep the compost pile active. So.
Which will in turn increase the biological activity, which will break down faster and heat up more.
Would you ever look into using alternative energies to maybe heat the facility?
Absolutely. For this go around, it just made more sense economically to buy a $3,000 wood furnace and then just harvest wood from around us. But we definitely are interested in biodigestion as well as biothermic heating. Biothermic, what that is basically taking compost pile and then running hydronic tubes underneath it and kind of sapping the heat out of the compost and then heating whatever you want to heat with it. So,
I mean, in a lot of ways, we do use renewable sources because burning wood is a renewable energy because you can grow wood, and we use some form of solar heating because a greenhouse is capturing solar heat, and those are just really, you know, small scale ways in which we do that. But yeah, I mean, if we well, say I guess next year is the last year that the Obama dollars are going to be there for renewable energies. So, you know, maybe we'll buy a whole bunch of stuff next year just because it's subsidized.
We're looking at a couple properties in the city of Neenah that are right along the river. We've been talking about putting these earth tubes out, or what, I don't know what they call them, but
it's geothermal.
Geothermal tubes out into the river because the river stays at 40 to 50 degrees. So you can take that and then, you know, you'll have a constant temperature of 40 to 50 degrees.
I don't know if you said this, but is there a reason you picked Neenah to start the business?
We had access to cheap land, and it's actually, because we were in Madison, we were thinking, oh, Madison's a great community to do this in. Actually, Madison probably isn't as great a community as Neenah is, which we've come to learn. Madison's a very saturated market as far as local food is concerned. There's so many farmers in Dane County. You go to the farmers market there and it is crowded. There's tons of competition.
And there's a 15-year waiting list to get into the farmers market in Madison.
But in Neenah, not many people had heard of this kind of thing, and they're really interested in it. So it has a bit of a novelty factor, and additionally, Neenah is really great at promoting businesses from within their community. There's a ton of wealth there.
Yeah, general wealth.
So it's actually been a really great community to be in.
And yeah, our other partner Steve and I went to high school in Neenah at St. Mary Central, so we had a lot of contacts. I worked in the restaurant industry, and I just know, it was just like, that was already a foot in the door, just knowing all the business owners. People knew us, so they were more willing to help. It would have been a lot harder to go into a community like Madison where everybody and their brother grows food, and you know, and everyone knows a restaurant owner there, so it's really competitive in Madison. So
not necessarily a city that we will definitely stay away from, but this is a good place to start for us. So Fox Valley, this is an up and coming thing in Fox Valley. Like people are, you know, you've got Growing Oshkosh here in Oshkosh. Up in Appleton, you've got Riverview Gardens.
But I mean, when you look at the market, I mean, there's 500,000 people in the Fox Valley, And I mean, you have every amenity that a large city has, just a little bit more spread out. And people want the things that the big cities have here because those are the nice things to have, and people are willing to pay for them. So.
Any more questions? Awesome. Well, thank you guys.